Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. When I first saw Rigveda, I was amazed at the curious structure of this book, which is supposed to be the oldest written book. It has four layers and different books. And in the second book of Aitareya is one of the four layers of Rigveda. There is another great work, Aitareya Upanishad. Aitareya Upanishad is a part of Aitareya Arnayika, and it comprises of the fourth, fifth, and sixth chapters of the second book of Aitareya Arnayika, and it's one of the four layers of Rigveda. So it is an integral part of Rigveda, and Aitareya Upanishad is extremely full of knowledge, even psychology regarding our mind, our consciousness. We always forget that the awareness of consciousness was much more possibly at that time than it is today. There are more problems, their lives are more difficult, and they were more connected to the nature and to the world. As a matter of fact, Aitareya Upanishad is so relevant that to ignore it, not possible. You can do it at the peril. And its importance is because it primarily discusses consciousness at a various levels. And at times you feel that the psychology of mind that Aitareya Upanishad discusses is far more profound than maybe even what Carl Jung and Freud have discussed. It discusses the three philosophical themes. First is the word itself, the whole universe. And the man is a creation, but man not himself, but his mind, the universal self. Second is the theory that the Atma undergoes a threefold birth. It discounts that. Third, that the consciousness is the essence of the soul, Atma. It is primarily an ancient Upanishad. And if you see the Mutika canon of 10 Upanishad, it is at number 8. It is one of the middle Upanishads. The date and composition is not exactly determined, but it is around sometime 6th century BC. Aitareya Upanishad is in a short prose text. It has 3 chapters and is only of 33 verses, but despite being short, like Vichitranatak, as I discussed 2 weeks back, it is extremely profound. The first chapter of Aitareya Upanishad discusses the human soul, which is the base of all consciousness. And that is what is more profound. This soul is discussed not by itself. And according to Aitareya Upanishad, it existed before even the creation of the universe, the spirit in the human mind. The consciousness was there much before the word came into existence. As a matter of fact, it is the creator of everything, and everything is born out of it. As a matter of fact, the text when you read, you would find that there is a certain logic in this about man that it is the creator itself. First came the four entities according to that space, that the earth and the stars, Mirachi, there's a light, you can call it atom, and a pas, it's water. So earth, light, water, which is fluid, And after these came into existence came the cosmic self, the creation. These things, the earth which sustains life, light which promotes life, and water without which nothing is possible. These are the three things which came before. And now, this was written 6 centuries BC. Apparently, the same thought is now being discussed. First, it was water, and then slowly life emerged in the form of amoeba. So, then comes the cosmic self, as I was saying, and then the 8 psyches and principles: speech, breathing, sight, hearing, skin, hair, mind, outbreathing, and then reproductivity. These are the processes came into it. And the soul created 8 guardians comprising of these 8 psyches. And these psyches, as I said, are speech, in-breathing, sight, skin, hair, mind, out-breathing, and reproductivity. And then asserts Aitareya Upanishad came the connectivity, the principle of hunger and thirst. Hunger unites the human beings everywhere, thirst. These are the primal human needs. And each human being is connected because these are the common denominators. The lowest common denominator is food. You can live without it. And of course, air, but air is the first property. So everything became interdependent. And it, how was the interdependence? Now it comes medical science in embryo. They say that the principle of apana, the digestion, is the basis of all connectivity, all the interdependence. If you can't digest the food that you have taken, which you take with the common denominator, as the food is, then you cannot connect. And then came man who could not exist without a sense of consciousness, sense of self and soul, which they call Atma. And then the sense converted itself into cogitating itself, saying, I'm more than the sensory organs, I'm more than my mind, I'm more than my productive ability. And that's what the psychologists say now, which was said in Aitareya Upanishad 6 BCE. Now, how is it that the breathing, eating, procreating, that is the animal level? And man progresses from animal level to a superior human level. That is because of logic, cogitating, reasoning. And that has been emphasized by Aitareya Upanishad. I'm more than my animal self. That's the most important thing. I read Upanishad in a translation by Paul Deussen. And the first chapter of Aitareya, I still remember the word as a creation. The man as the highest manifestation of Atma is also named Brahma. Brahma is the basic idea of this creation. So this is the first chapter. The second chapter, Aitareya Upanishad asserts that the soul in any man is born twice. First, when a child is born, soul and the spirit is created. Second, when the child is cared for and grows to selfhood. And then when the child becomes the parent. And last, when the child dies and the soul converges into the complete cosmos. The overall idea of the chapter 2 is that it is procreation and nurturing of the children that makes a man immortal. You live through your children, and this process continues. And that's what makes it immortal, and that is the theory of rebirth, by which means that the Atma sustainably persists in this universe. You as a parent die to be reborn as children of your children. There is no other way, and that is very clearly stated in Aitareya Upanishad. The other things, which they say the transmigration of soul and other things, came later on. And then there comes a third chapter. It discusses the nature of the mind and soul, Atma. It declares that consciousness, awareness of mind, is what defines human beings, the source of all intellectual and moral theories. And again, when we talk of mindfulness, when we talk of consciousness, when we talk of id, ego, superego, that all has been discussed as a part of analysis of the nature of self, nature of consciousness. And then the opinion says that the key to the riddle of the universe is discovery of one's own self. Again, comes to that mindfulness. Know thyself, self awareness. That is the key to understanding the riddle of the universe. If you know yourself, then you know the world. And that is the most important part. It does not advocate rituals, it does not advocate plurality of prayers, it does not advocate doing or indulging in ceremonies. It only says understand yourself, understand your mind, understand your capabilities. Be aware of yourself, and yourself is your mind. And to be immortal is being you. Once you understand yourself, you have become immortal. And then, when I compared it with the translation with Max Muller, Paul Dewson's and Max Muller, I saw that Max Muller translates the parts of the chapter in very short, I'm saying. Chapter 3 translated, Who is he whom we meditate on the self, which is self? And the response given is in the shape of a conversation. Everything are the various names of the knowledge, the true self. It's rest on the knowledge. The word is led by the knowledge. Knowledge is a cause of knowledge itself. That's Brahma. In other words, your mind, your intuitive capability, this is what you are, and this is what the word is. Now, as a matter of fact, the nature of consciousness is a seminal theme at the heart of Upanishad thoughts. Whatever 18 Upanishads are there, the Aitareya Upanishad explores the fivefold sheath of the human consciousness. Anai, Panai, Manomai, that is the visual, physical, vital, mental, intellectual, and causal repair. These are the layers of the human individuality: physical, vital, mental, intellectual. Similarly, Madhukya Upanishad lays down the four stages of consciousness, that is, waking state, dreaming state, dreamless sleep state, and pure consciousness. In the same manner, Aitareya Upanishad clearly outlines that this is the way these layers determine our level and awareness of consciousness. Reflecting deeply on the nature of the human and consciousness, which is transcendental, Aitareya begins by stating that the only reality is the mind. In the beginning, it was there. In the beginning of the word, there was light, and that is mind. And Aitareya outlines how the first principles created the universe in the first stages, beginning with space, time, crystallizing ultimately into the human being. And human beings are the deepest and the prime manifestation of the mind, alluding to the fact that we need to understand our inner cosmic nature. Who am I? And I am not what I wear, I am not what I look like, but I am what my minds tell me to be. And how does Atma sustains itself by procreating a nurturing family, by outlining, as I said earlier, the three births as a child, as an adult, and then ultimately death, and then rebirth. Rebirth of the self. So you, and that is according to them, the karma doesn't come into that. Karma is something which here he deals with that concept as well. The karma is basically how your children would react, because what you are doing, whether they follow you or they oppose you, because the consciousness, the duality of the consciousness would be there. As a matter of fact, this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of a story, the opposing selves, manifests itself in the fact that the children many times are not in agreement with their parents. And there's nothing wrong with that. You see, Mundaka defines pure consciousness as Turiya, the immeasurable, something like samadhi in the yogic terms. Aitareya Upanishad is clear, and in the concluding Mahavakya, consciousness is dwelling within the body, but it's not the body. Consciousness triggers the cognitive process of mind, but it also agitates, makes your sensory faculties work. So there's a combination of logic and senses. There's no duality. As a matter of fact, there's basic unity. And consciousness, as defined in this concept, reminds us the empirical world as it truly is. The only one relative part of the larger consciousness to seek and understand your mind, and seeker is to strive for the purity of the self, unalloyed. And you know it. When we say follow your gut, gut comes from your inner mind, and that is always the best guide. As a matter of fact, Adi Shankaracharya reminds the reader that Aitareya Upanishad must be studied in the context in which it starts, and says that Atma Idam in the hymn 1. It doesn't start with, nor does the text mean, I am alive, that's God. No. I think, therefore I am. What Descartes said. You know, the theory propounded by Aitareya Upanishad is expounded further by Descartes, by Hegel, by Kant, and by Freud and Jung. The consciousness and self-realization, the oneness of the universe, the connectivity, all that comes. And that is where its importance lies. So, consciousness in all its manifestations is discussed in extremely explicit terms, negating all ceremonial, all ritual, but understanding that your capability to reason out, to cogitate, to think logically is a road leading to the awareness of mind. And that awareness makes you unique and ideal human being. This is, I think, the first treatise on mind, on consciousness, and is the source of understanding not only how the mind works, but how we can understand and master the working of the mind to make ourselves absolutely, take us absolutely to a higher level where body functions, sensory perceptions are not negated, but they are feeding and assisting us to understand the reality of life, the reality of self. You must read it to understand it, but then it's a great treatise worthy of being pursued. Thank you.